Zoom recording.
Here we go. Hello, we are Kesley and Britoni, and we are the Aquari Queens. Welcome. This is our very first episode. Britoni, are you like as excited as I am for this?
Super stoked.
So y'all, Britoni and we actually met on a podcast, video, YouTube thing, a lot like this. And found out that we have almost the same astrology chart. We are both Aquarians. We have basically all of the planets in the same signs. We have different rising signs. So we both share this passion for astrology, but most of all, just for life and for inspiring others and this journey of growth and magic that we are all on. Yeah. So that is why we decided to start Aquari Queens. So Tony, this was really your brainchild, your idea. So what's your vision for this whole Aquari Queens thing?
Well, so most of my awesome ideas come when I'm painting, and painting is a form of meditation, right? So one day I was just listening to astrology and then painting, and so the term Aquari Queens came to my mind, and I was like, oh, that's a good one. And so I Googled it, and the domain was available. So I purchased the domain. I've owned it for I don't know, probably 2 years now. And I'm like, okay, what do I do with it? But I just felt like it was going to be something one day. And then I heard Kesley's podcast and decided I just messaged her on her website and was like, I'm just feeling called to contact you because we're both Aquariuses. We both have Capricorn moons. And then she named a bunch of other same points in her chart. And I was like, this is crazy. And then it also said that she was in Atlanta. And I was like, oh, I'm from Atlanta. This is way too synchronistic. And so we just kept chatting and we've become good friends. And I think for both of us, well, for me, is to help educate people. There's just, I find not only astrology, but we're both Reiki masters as well. And so learning about the energy body and what really can transform in your life when you start opening up to these different possibilities and events that occur, listening to your intuition and building it and trusting in the universe. I find it so fascinating. I'm like, how can I not share?
Yeah, I love that. Well, and one of the things, Britoni, you were very kind and invited me to one of your La Luna Ohana moon ceremonies. Yeah. And we're going to share more about that a little bit later, so stay tuned. But one of the things I loved about that ceremony was you asked all of us to offer up an intention, something that we were bringing to the group. So you've talked a little bit about that already, but what would you say is the intention that you want to bring to this specific episode, we'll say, of Aquari Queens?
Love and light. I think in love and light is an intention that we'll want to bring on forward always, right? Light being shedding light onto possibilities and a new perspective, new way of living, in a way that feels completely guided and support and just full of love. Gotta spread the love. That's all we have, right? And life is so much more beautiful with the more love we pour into it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you were speaking, it's wow, it just brings up so much beauty, and even my body is getting warm as you were saying that. And then there was a word that was rising up from within me. I hadn't really thought about this before we got on live, but the word was hope for me. I mean, I just think with everything that's going on in the world, I just hear it, especially the last couple of days, and we're going to talk about, I know, the energy that's been going on this week and what's to come. But I think with some of the specific energies we've been going through, they're intense, right? And they're not always bringing out the best in everybody. And there's some things in the world that we're looking around and we're like, what is going on? And that's part of our intention with Aquari Queens, right? Is to share with people the hope of this new age, this Aquarian age that is coming through and showing up for us. And right? And I think that's one of the reasons why you and I really connected, is that as an Aquarius, we sort of embody and feel so connected to this new world that is taking shape. And I think that's really what 2020 has been about. And, you know, we look back and we remember, you know, some of the things that have taken place, and we look ahead to what's to come yet this year. But I really see 2020 as certainly it has been a bit of a crumbling. It has been a bit of things that we knew and we thought were very stable have sort of like been all disrupted. But this is where I see is like the new beginning of something that is so full of beauty and love and light and hope. So that is
Right. And like I see like unity and humanity and everybody coming together. And it, you know, like I feel like when I pose the question, it's like, oh, how can the world unite? And people are like, oh yeah, like that's so far away. And I'm like, actually, no, I see it. I envision it. Like I'm living in it. Like I mean, how else do we manifest things, right? It starts with the vision, and then we just like, and the knowing, right? And just live in that truth and just spread it as much as we can, like attract it, right? And it's possible. Anything's possible.
It is possible. Yeah.
And
so
I think the planets are like totally guiding us towards that, right? Like
100%.
It's electromagnetic connection, right? So it's like, how can that be denied?
How can that? I know that's
totally
just
influenced by it. Like I looked at, it was funny, I like pulled up my phone this morning and I saw that there was a Uranus and Mercury transit, and one of like, it had a little blurb, and it was like something about like, you know, expect new discoveries, or see new discoveries, but you might also be getting a headache. And I was like, and it was crazy because my head was just pounding all day. And then we have a friend that's staying with us from Germany, and he came upstairs and he's like, oh my God, my head hurts so bad. And I was just like, how can you deny that? When I was thinking that to myself, they think I'm crazy when I talk about it.
I totally agree. You know, to make a long story short, I never believed in astrology. It was never something that I really thought about until I started to pay attention to the moon cycles first, right? And so for people who ask me about astrology and they want to learn it, I always say, like, pay attention to the sun and the moon, especially the new and full moons. And I started to notice, like, wow, the more I learned and the more I learned about the specific energies of each of the moon phases and each of the new and full moons, I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually something to this. And then I started learning about my sun sign and my moon sign and my rising and all of these signatures. And that's one of the things that I really love about astrology is, for me, I struggled so much. And Britoni, I don't know if you can relate to any of this when it comes to astrology, but I struggled so much with really feeling confident in who I was. You know, I have Pluto in my first house. So if anybody knows astrology, like, I'm always going to be somebody who's transforming, right? I've always got like a new evolution going on within me. And so I think that made me really unsure.
Why don't you take a moment to kind of explain that? Like what it means to have, like, what does it mean to have your first house, and what does it mean to have Pluto there?
Right.
Just to kind of, you know, like, we don't have to go through all of it, but just, you know, like when we talk about the different kind of break it down.
Yes, absolutely. So really important thing for everybody to know from what we just said about first house is your first house. You maybe have heard of your sun sign, right? So your sun sign is really your soul essence. That is really the energy that is you. It is kind of like the plot of your movie. This is your soul, right? And then your rising sign is much more your personality. It is what other people see or notice when they first meet you.
Kind of like a mask that you wear.
It can be like a mask, or actually one of the ways, yes, I like that analogy. Another analogy I like to use, it's kind of like your Superman cape, right? You can put it on and you can take it off. And what I found is these tend to be natural gifts and talents that people have. And when we allow our rising sign to become all of us, right? We stop short. We stop short of connecting with our soul. But when we use it strategically and we note it as like, this is a talent that I have, I can use this very well. That is how I found for myself anyway, that it tends to serve me the best, and what I've noticed with clients as well. I don't know if that's, so I'm a Libra. I think it'd be fun for us to talk about our rising signs, because that's the one part of us that like is different, because we both have Aquarius sun, Capricorn moon. We'll talk more about what those signatures mean later. But since we're on rising sign, why don't you talk a little bit about your rising sign first, Britoni? Sag rising.
I love my rising sign. My rising sign's Sag. It's a fire sign, and it's just all about this like fiery, like committed, going for it energy. Is that how you would describe it?
Totally. It is fun loving. It is free spirited, but it is also, and it is also very wise. It's very positive. It's very optimistic. It's always up for an adventure. And it's very worldly. Like I even see in your rising sign can sometimes be your physical appearance. So this is what I think is fun about this, right? Like if you look at Britoni, like you can very much, when I see her, I see that Sag. I see that beautiful pattern and like the culture that's reflected in you and the spirituality and this, like, doesn't she just look like a woman who's like ready to go on an adventure? Like if you want to travel, like would she not be your travel buddy? Like come on, guys. She is going to be my travel buddy.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah. So
awesome.
I think that was a really great description. And have you found that, like, in terms of when I talk about like talents or skills, have you found that you have a lot of like Sag related talents or skills or like gifts that come naturally to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like my creativity, being an artist, especially like I've always tapped into that travel. My family didn't travel a lot, and as soon as I could start traveling, I was like, I gotta go here, gotta go there, gotta go. And it's funny, like I was thinking about before the pandemic, or during the pandemic, I'm like, oh wow, like I've not been in one place for more than 10 consecutive days for 15 years. And here I am, like having traveled since March, how many ever months that is.
Yeah, and as a Sag, well, and what's also interesting too, like you're still finding your way to explore. So I've met Britoni, I know that you've been doing a lot of like learning and growing and like learning astrology. So it's like, even though you can't go on adventures per se, you're still going on these like knowledge adventures, wisdom adventures. Very Sagittarius.
Like, oh my God, I can't learn enough.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, we both have that strong Sag energy, so I can relate to a lot of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And in fact, that's how I started Luluna Hona, was at the very beginning of COVID, like one way to connect with some of my girlfriends. I was like, oh, would you guys mind if I host like these moon ceremonies? I'm feeling really called to do it. And I felt like it was a way for me to like learn astrology better, just like you said, like following the moon cycle. So I was like, oh, well, I can like learn the signs and I'll like, teach them like what's going to come up, like the weather and stuff like that, for what to expect, the astrology forecast for the next couple of weeks. So like the energies that we're going to be faced with. And then it became like just a huge passion, and something that became very supportive for all of us. There's a little group of 5 of us, and started opening up to more people. So see where it goes. It's just fun.
It is. It's amazing. I hope that everyone watching us can join us for the next moon ceremony.
Me too.
for the Libra new moon, which actually happens to be my rising sign.
Your rising sign.
Yes. So
what did you tell us about Libra?
I would love to, because I love my rising sign as well. I think, that's the beauty of astrology as well, is the more we fall in love with the signatures in our chart, the more we fall in love with our natural essence and who we really are. So Libra is very much, it is the sign of the scales. So it is very much about balance and harmony and peace and love. It is an air sign, so it tends to be very social. Libras like to have conversations about, higher minds type topics, right? And they are very outgoing. They tend to be those people that, when you're in a group, they're like out there meeting people or making sure everybody feels included. It tends to be a sign that's ruled by Venus. So, aesthetics are really important to a Libra. So when I set up for a video, right, I've got to have flowers in the background and colors and, pretty things. It's a very Libran kind of energy. So yeah, that's a little bit about Libra.
I love that. I
Yeah,
like
it's,
Libras too.
I know. We like people. We do like people. But what I've noticed with myself, I work in communications. So when we talk about the skills and talents, like the communication, the social part of that, it's something that it's definitely not all of me, but it's something that I can sort of turn on and off. And the part kind of how we got onto this was I have Pluto in my first house. And
Right.
so Pluto is the great transformer. It is all about death and rebirth. So my whole life has been this journey of kind of like the multiple chapters of Kesley. And that's one of the things that I've grown to love. But a signature like that in your first house tends to be very prominent in your personality, but also very prominent in your life.
Right.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
that's a little bit about astrology and charts. Do you want to talk about transits?
Yeah.
We started talking about this a little bit. So you were talking about Uranus and Mercury opposition, which is occurring today.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you mentioned, some of the things that you were thinking about today, but was there anything, so when we think about Uranus and Mercury, like that can be insightful, can be surprising to
Surprising.
what came up for you today around that?
I mean, I just I had this massive headache. Like nothing like surprising as like super out of the box had happened. Tonight is the vice president debate. So I think that that's going to be super interesting to watch, where you got like Mercury's all about communication. So like see how their communication skills are, and if they flow or if they clash, right? And then any surprising messages that may come up, or God knows, like the surprising is something that we are not going to expect. Like we might think it's going to go one way, and it will be like we wouldn't even be able to dream it. Kind of like COVID.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and
nobody
I
would
was just
ever
reading a headline,
imagine.
and it was talking about like how a lot of social justice issues are going to be kind of the front and center for probably a lot of the conversation tonight, and that is certainly very Uranian as well, because it really is about rebellion, and it's about changing things up and doing things in a new way. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of innovative ideas and things come up around that tonight.
It will be.
Yeah, Britoni, actually, it's really interesting that you say that nothing completely like earth-shattering came up for you today on this big Uranus day. And I would have to say the same thing. There were a lot of little things. But what I think has been really interesting about this specific play of planets and their positions in the universe is that we've got Mercury, right? Our mind communication. It's in the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is about depth and complexity and deep emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, really, what this has been bringing up for me is this really strong call to really tap into my intuition and go a level deeper.
Yeah.
Like, normal, when we think of Uranus energy, we think of it like literally. And it's so funny because I had a friend on Instagram message me, and she's like, literally, I've been hitting my head. Like, what is the universe trying to tell me? And I'm like, I don't know, but it seems like it might be something that is something that you maybe have been not wanting to think about, or, it's something that the universe has been trying to get through to you for a while. But what I've been finding most often with this Mercury and Scorpio opposed Uranus is that we've got to do a deeper dive. And so I think this is a very intuitive time where we've got to be open to our emotions. We've got to be open to signs from the universe. We've got to be open to really facing some of the shadow and fears. And for me, like shadow work's been coming up a lot with this Mercury in Scorpio. And I think also with the Mercury retrograde occurring in Scorpio with a lot of time opposing Uranus as it's transiting through the retrograde. I think this is going to be a very intuitive and a very deep time. It's not going to be just this like surface level stuff. It's going to be much, much, much deeper, and it's going to take a little work. It's going to take us meeting the universe halfway to really figure out what those messages are that are trying to come through for us.
I think so too. And I think also, like, I keep getting the message, just like listening to those little whispers inside your head. So like a great example would be when I was at the grocery store yesterday. I shared this story with you yesterday, Kesley, and your response was, oh, that's so Uranian. But so I'm at the grocery store and I like see the magazine section and I was like, oh, I should go check out the magazines. Like I never do that. I never just hang out in the grocery store and like flip through magazines. And I was, and this guy comes up with a grocery cart and like, I noticed him like checking out the hunting magazines and stuff. And I'm like, okay, back into my little zone, my creative zone. And one thing that happened is I flipped open the magazine, and the page I flipped open to is the Ohana Institute, which is like this new school. And I just thought, oh, that's so ironic. Like I just started Luluna Ohana. Actually, that was back in June when Luluna Ohana, like the name came to me. And we created like the whole website and everything. I created the whole website.
You did it all.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
I would love to say that somebody else was involved with it, but
it's
it was
all
me.
you, girl.
Well, like to my own horn. Anyway, so I'm like, wow, that's really fascinating. And it's a whole new way of learning, right? And like a whole like new structure, and Ohana means family and like group of people that come together and breed together. So I was like, that's really fascinating. Maybe I should look into that more, right? And then I put that magazine down and I pick up another one, and it was like an art focused magazine. And I noticed this guy like taking groups of magazines and just like placing them in his cart. He was like, poof, poof, and I was just out of nowhere. It was like, what are you doing? Didn't even think about it. Like, it was just like, what's up, dude? And he was like, I was like, either you got like a really fun project going on, or I was like, you're about to buy a bunch of magazines. And he was like, oh, I do the merchandising for all the magazines in the store. I'm like, oh, let me share a project I'm working on with you. Shared this whole like love cell project that I got going on. And he's like, I love that. In fact, I'm going to share it with my dad. My dad owns the distribution company for all these magazines. I was like, amazing. I feel totally supportive. Forgot to tell you at the very end, I'm checking out at the grocery store. My total was $111.74.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, 11.
I love that. What do you think that message was? Did you think about it afterwards? Were you like,
oh, I think that's just a message of being so like just truly supported, like just being at the right place in the right time, like listening to the little like messages, that little whisper in my head. Yeah, go check out the magazines. Like you just need to stay there for a minute and just hang out and like get stuck in that zone. Like don't be in a hurry.
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. So Mercury, Uranus, anything else around that? Any advice for people on navigating, because we're going to have more Mercury Uranus coming up, because for those who don't know, right? So right now, Mercury and Uranus, they've been in this opposition. We've probably been feeling it for about the last 4 days. Today is Wednesday the 7th, right? Tuesday. It's Wednesday, right?
Today's Wednesday. Yeah, I kept going back and forth all day. I was like,
so we'll probably feel this for a couple more days, and then it will release, but it's going to come back because Mercury is going to go retrograde, and then it's going to sweep 2 more times. So we're going to be feeling a lot of this. Plus there's a lot of Uranus playing into the moons, the new and full moons this month. So we got to get used to the surprising energy. So anything, Britoni, that you would advise people for dealing with like the Mercury Uranus action we're about to have with Mercury retrograde and these transits we've been talking about?
I would think, well, we also have to think too that like Venus is in the mix, Venus in Virgos. So we have energy of just like paying attention to and like beauty, but then also like paying attention to the routines that we have in our life that like that are not working for us, right? And we're not getting the outcomes that we really want, right? So really paying attention to the routines, and if we need to make a shift and to get the desired outcomes that we're really focusing on and hoping for. And just making those conscious efforts. And I would also say, like, if you hear that little voice inside your head, like it's communicating with you for a reason, and it's going to be so subtle, and you don't second guess it. Like, just go for it. Like, just like the magazine story. Like, it's like, oh, you notice the magazines. Oh, you should go check out the magazines. Like, why would I do that? I didn't ask why. I was just like, okay, that's what I'm going to go do. I was, go check out the magazines and just pick up the first one you see, right? And just hang out there. Yeah, I don't know. Doing that. And then also, I think it's really important that we have movement through our bodies. Like really just focusing on moving energy and not allowing it to get stagnant. When it gets stagnant, like some of this energy that's coming to us is going to be surprising, and it's going to be crazy. And if we don't have the energy flowing in our bodies through our chakra systems, and we allow it to get stagnant, we're going to react rather than like flow with the energy. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really important point. One of the transits we haven't specifically mentioned, I don't think, but you referenced one of the big reasons, or one of the big things that reminds me of this transit with the moving of the energy. So Mars in retrograde. So Mars being our drive, being sometimes our aggression, our yang energy, or in another word, masculine, but not meaning like male, but like that driving force, that like very forward movement, that kind of an energy within us. It's in a retrograde. So it's almost like we're feeling even more anxious or more aggressive internally, and we're much more reactive if we're not intentional in the way that we're showing up. So for me, when I think about Mars in retrograde, and then Mars coming into contact with these big power player planets, being Saturn, which we had last week. Saturn's about boundaries. So you may have been feeling very recently this like push-pull dynamic, right? Like I want to do something, I want to move forward, but for some reason I'm stuck. There's a boundary. You have this goal, but you keep running up against this roadblock. If that's happening for you, it's not you. That is Mars and Saturn at play, or has been. And now Mars in the next couple of days is going to be actually squaring Pluto, which we talked about is that deep, like shadowy, dark spaces, transformational, but empowering energy. So you might feel this like desire, this like aggression, this drive within you.
Maybe even like a frustration, because you're wanting things to progress and move forward, but then you have Saturn sitting here and he's like, nope, not yet. Like the timing's not yet. But we're being expected to plan and like get ready. And so that way when he releases the dam, so to speak, then when the energy can start flowing and moving forward, we're not going to get like toppled over. We're going to flow with it, and it's going to be beautiful. But that's not going to happen for like another couple months. So
right. And
you just have to like settle in on it.
Bringing out in us, right? So when we have Mars, which is super powerful, and Pluto, which is super powerful, and it's sort of like we're stopped in our tracks and we're getting frustrated, it is actually helping us to grow even more firm and more rooted in what it is that we want. So we are getting very clear on what is worth our energy. We are getting very clear on being more intentional with where we put our energy. And the other thing that I think it's really helping us to do, because we've got the sun in Libra right now, is looking at relationships as a mirror for the things that are going on in us, right? So if things are triggering us, because we have a strong likelihood that things are going to trigger us that normally wouldn't. Or we look out into the world and we're like, oh, that makes me so mad when I see this person behave this way. It's helping us to reclaim the parts of ourselves that maybe we rejected. So like if you're seeing somebody who's aggressive or assertive out there, where is it that you are afraid to really step into your power? So this is a time where we are all being asked to purify what power means within us and learn where it is that we really want to apply that in our lives. That's what I think about when I think about this Mars-Pluto dynamic that we're going to be going through the next couple of days.
And also like letting go of anything that the people and the energies that are not serving us, right? Like just because we've been friends forever doesn't mean you got to be friends all the time, for the rest of your life, right? Like people serve a purpose for seasons and sometimes their lifetimes. Also look at the people that bring you so much love and joy, right? And like really tap into that and be like, whoa, because that's a true reflection of yourself as well. And then you're like, it allows you to go a level deeper in love for yourself and others around you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing. Coming back to the Uranus and Taurus, it's related to what you just said. Taurus is a very like sensory energy. It's like about the physical. So I've also been feeling, along with this intuition, this call to like be more sensory in my experience, like tuning into what does my food taste like? What is soothing to me? What is relaxing to me? What kind of music like really lights me up inside? Like some of those really like sensory things. And I think in terms of like getting clear on our desires and what we want and who we want in our lives, our body, you talked about this earlier with energy, like our body, our physical reactions and those sensations, they're our intuition speaking to us and guiding us in the right direction.
Absolutely. So if it like causes the stir up or like some kind of feeling of like uncomfortableness or anger, first ask yourself, like, is it mine or is it somebody else's? Because a lot of us are empathic and we don't even realize it, right? And so empath just means that you can be in contact with another person's energy, and it doesn't even have to be person to person. Like you can go into Facebook and carry someone else's energy, or Instagram, you know, like, and see something they posted, and maybe they posted it from an angry place, and then all of a sudden you feel angry. So, right, like recognizing if the energy is yours, ask yourself, is this mine? And you'll know whether it's yours or not. And and that's just a skill that you can build up. You can always do like a lean test, and we can go into that later date. But if it's not yours, then return to sender. And if it is yours, then ask why. Like keep asking questions to go deeper and deeper so that you aren't triggered and you're, you know, like you can flow through it easier and peel back the layers and work on yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
So well said. Yeah. And I love what you just said about return to sender, because that was like a question for you on the tip of my tongue, was like, what do you do? Because I know you're very empathic. It's like, what do you do? So it's like the return to sender. And my trick is breathing. A lot of air in my chart, right? So it's like I feel the heaviness in my body when I'm holding something that's not mine, or an energy that is not serving me. And it's like physically I feel it, and I breathe into the area. And I find that's really grounding and releasing for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think grounding is super important for us. Also going back to like the whole Uranus topic is Uranus rules the Kundalini energy within us all, right? And so that is an energy that is asking us to be super grounded. So connecting with Mother Earth, like getting outside, like going for a walk, and imagine like roots growing out of your feet, and just really like becoming one with Mama Gia.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the grounding and like the earth part of this, because we've got a lot of Capricorn. We've had a lot of Capricorn this year, right? So it's been a very earthy year.
Yeah, good point.
You know, it's brought all of us kind of like to this back to this level of facing reality, like, wow, like looking around, what do I want to keep? What's working? What's not? Where do I need to change internally in order to shift the outside, right? Because more often than not, in order for the outside to change, if we don't like what we see, we've got to change something on the inside first. And I think that's a lot of like the gut check that we've had this year with some of the things that we've been moving through as a collective.
And also too, a lot of people have like started gardening or like community gardens and things like that. So it's definitely a lot of energy.
Totally.
Just
beautiful.
So one thing that I learned too is like we have a hard time connecting to Earth, right? So like one of our main chakras, and it's actually an additional one out. Like we have our 7 main chakras that are inside our body, and then we have 5 that are outside of our body. And one of them is actually like at the bottom of our feet, maybe 12 to 18 inches below our feet. And that is what connects us to Earth. So here's what happens is we come out of our mother's womb, and we're like, all of a sudden, we're not like connected to her any longer. And then we're like automatically like stuffed with like a plastic, you know, like bottle or, you know, something. And then we're spending this time like being like, okay, well, how do I get connected? How do, like, so we start our lives like not even really knowing what it means to be connected to Earth, right? Or like trying to figure it back out again.
Yeah, we've got to figure out this whole, I mean, you and I have had these conversations. Maybe it will resonate with people or maybe sound crazy to some people, I don't know. But it's kind of like, you know, we're very aware that we're a soul in a human body. And sometimes it's being in a human body and being in a human, right? Because we're so aware of the spiritual and the soul side. And if you're watching this, many of you can probably relate. So sometimes it's the physical part that can be very awkward. And
it is. I'm like, a lot of times I'm like, what are these humans doing? And I'm like, I'm like, okay, I am one of those too, right? And I have to remember that.
We're figuring out how to be a soul, a spirit in a human body. Isn't that what this fun, this journey? I mean, you're a Sag rising, like, you know how to go on an adventure. What better adventure than to come down here and figure out all this craziness of this human experience, also called, I've heard it called Earth School, and I love that. It's like, I'm definitely here learning a lesson or two in Earth School. So I think that's a great segue to another one of the topics that we had on the list for tonight, which was the Aquarian Age.
Yeah.
So, Britoni, what does that mean to you? Like, what do you think this whole Aquarian Age thing that you hear people talk about, what do you think it's all about from your perspective?
So that's one thing that I think is like really cool about having this channel. Well, I'm just gonna, you know, the one we're both Aquariuses, but then two, the fact that like we're going into this Aquarian age, right? And so we're able, it's a great channel to just like really enlighten people what that means. And I really do think it's about like kind of like a utopian society, if you want to think about it that way, where we're just, let's face it, like the way that the world's working, it's not working well. Like the system's broken, and the way that it was developed many years ago, like is things have changed a lot. Population has grown, so has technology, so has everything's evolved, right? And so now it's time for us as humans to evolve as well with the structures, break them down and build them back up. Like it can be uncomfortable, but look, like what we've been facing with this whole pandemic has been uncomfortable. And if we can get through this, then why not just break everything down and just start over, right? And figure out a new way of moving forward that is more beneficial for us together as a society. It's been proven to work well in the past. I mean, like the Babylonian days, they all came together in community. They all work, you know, they would all go out, or like the men would, I guess, go out and like get the food, the women would cook it, and they would all eat together as a community. Like, look, we don't even know some of our neighbors, you know, like a lot of us don't know our neighbors, and interact as a community. So I think it's just a way of shifting the way that things work, and focusing on the arts. I feel like art is going to be seen in a different light, and I think it's going to be a way of connecting people in a really awesome way.
I love that. I was reflecting on this myself. I was like, wow, what do I actually think this Aquarian Age is all about? And you know, Aquarius is a really interesting sign, because Aquarians,
it's introverted as well, which
it can be, right? It's known for being a little bit aloof and a little bit, I'll even use the word like very individualistic, in that uniqueness, and each person as a unique soul is very important to an Aquarius, like being recognized for your authenticity, for being who you are, for showing up as just you, and kind of seeing people for that. And I was thinking, well, how does this play into this idea of Aquarians are also known for being humanitarians, and for actually like being very much into a collective community? How do those two things actually interplay, and how do I think that's going to work in this new world that we are all moving toward and creating, in my opinion? So just to be completely kind of transparent, that there's no like direct start or finish to Aquarian Age, right? Like it's just kind of this evolution. And some astrologers even say that Aquarian Age doesn't exist. I'll just put that out there. I do believe that it does. I'll go to and say I 100% believe in the Aquarian Age. And what I think it's going to look like, and what we'll see, is this idea of us all coming together to create a better humanity, collectively living in community, and each of us bringing our individual strengths and talents and uniqueness to that, and using it to lift us to a higher vibration, to make the world a better place. As opposed to, so the Piscean age, which is what we are in now, I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, how, you know, when I think of Pisces, I think of unity and love and like spirituality and all of these things, but really it can also be a bit of like losing our individuality to a collective. And so I think what we're going to see is, you know, think about it this way: you work in a corporate job, you kind of lose who you are for this like bigger purpose, this bigger kind of goal as a company. Or you are, I'll just use religion as an example, right? It's a practice that is bringing everybody together, but it's a very specific kind of way of doing things that everybody subscribes to. Not to say that that's any of those things are negative or bad, but I do think what this Aquarian Age will be about is more about the individual way and uniqueness, and how those all fit together in this like perfectly constructed quilt or mosaic art piece, where we each retain our own beauty, but it's coming together to build something that is even stronger, better, more
united.
You use the word utopian and united. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And doesn't the Pisces rule slavery? Do you know?
Yeah.
So, so the way I also see it too, like the Piscean age that we're in, you know, like we're slaves to a lot of things, right? So you have like the upper higher echelon, so to speak, like that higher figure that's like running everything, and we like become slaves to it. Whether it's like we, you know, we're slaves to our debt, we're slaves to the corporation, we're slaves to, like, the word quote unquote slave can not, you know, it means, it can mean so many different things, right? It's not.
Yeah. And all of these are like, it's not to say that one age or one sign or one thing is better than another, but I think we do need to sort of prepare ourselves that we are moving into something different. And, you know, there's always going to be, it's like the essence of the universe itself. There's always this duality. There's light and dark. There's things that we as humans associate with really positive, or things that are a little bit more challenging. Like, we're going to have all of that. We're going to have all of that in every single
contrast.
age.
Contrast is beautiful.
We're going to have the contrast, certainly.
Yeah.
I do think it's exciting. Also, another thing I think about with Aquarius is like information and technology. And I think we're going to have access to so much more. You know, truth has been a big word. Truth has been a huge word in 2020. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. This access to information and technology and all of this that's really coming to the surface, it's gonna take on a whole new level. And I think we're gonna see so much really that we've been blind to, being more conscious of what's really going on in this world that we live in.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And coming up with our own truth, right? Not just believing everything that we hear on media, and like, where does the source come from? Was that person paid to say it? Or, you know, like, what were their intentions of putting out whatever they put out, right?
Yeah. So one more question, then we're going to kind of talk about the big announcement that we have to make for what's coming up. So we've talked a lot about 2020. What do you think about 2021? What are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to? What are you feeling that 2021 is going to be about?
I feel like 2021 is going to be really exciting. So like anything that, I feel like anytime we go through an experience where something's broken down, right? Or we like kind of quote unquote like hit rock bottom, like we can only go up from there, right? Like I don't see that any of this getting worse. I see that we're on the up and up, and I'm getting that February is going to be a big breakthrough month for us collectively. It's kind of the feel I have. What about you?
I would say definitely, I echo the spring. I think that the new astrological year, which is going to start at the end of March. I think
Mm.
that's going to be a really big time for us. But I think that, yeah, the kind of like that first quarter, early next year, we're going to see a big turning point. I also think that this year, we've got the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction happening at the beginning of Aquarius. It's around December 21st, right near the winter solstice.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a huge new energy shift that we're
Huge.
going to,
That's where I feel the breaking
we
point happens.
So I think that, and I also think that's going to be this, like, you want to be ready for that. Like all the work, everything that's been going on in 2020, I think of it as sort of like this detox, like a soul detox. Like we've been getting rid of breaking down, getting rid of like all the shit that we don't want anymore. And now, like, by that date, I think we want to have a really good idea of what it is that we want to create in this new cycle that's coming in. So I feel this like real strong energy of like creation. And intentional is a word that keeps coming up, like being very intentional now that we've cleared the slate for what we want to create and manifest and attract and be and do and all those things as we move forward. So I think creation's really big for me in 2021.
I think so too. And just like this like phase of unfolding of manifestations of a better way of life that we want to live, right? But like that we attracted ourselves, right? Like we're it's going to be a new start for a lot of people.
Well said. So Britoni, we talked a little bit about your moon ceremonies.
Yeah.
Why don't we share what's coming up next week?
Next week we have a new moon, and we would like to invite anyone that would love to join us. They're about an hour ceremony, and we're going to be just talking about astrology, or the astrological forecast for the next couple of weeks, kind of what you can expect, the energies that you'll be faced with. But then also one little surprise that Kesley has for us is that she's going to, anyone that pre-registers, she's going to do a little sun sign reading for all of us. So that is going to be super exciting as well.
Can't wait. Yeah, I think just connection, and it's going to be a new moon, so it's always about setting new intentions. And so I think it's really hope that we can help people. And this Libra new moon, we've been talking a lot about Libra tonight, find some balance and harmony. Relationships is big. So even if you're watching this and you kind of know a little bit about your sun sign and you're wondering about how your sun sign connects with your partner, or maybe what might be good to look for in terms of energy in a partner, we can talk about those things too. Yeah,
like, absolutely. Like, it's an open format. We try to make it, or we do make it, just very conversational. It's a Hona, so it's family and a safe space, and just a place that you can come to just I guess release, and we connect every 2 weeks, so every new moon and every full moon. And what I've loved about flowing with the moon is it's kind of like breaking up my life in like these 2-week segments, right? Mm-hmm. And so I like set a goal, or like, okay, I'm gonna accomplish something in 2 weeks, right? And so I don't know, it's just been really beautiful. And then also just kind of like knowing what the energies are gonna be like, and like, so that way we don't react so much. I mean, even when I know it's coming up, sometimes I like react, and I'm like, why didn't I just do yoga? Like, I knew what was coming.
I knew what was coming.
Yeah, I knew it was coming up, and I still freaked out.
Yeah, right. But it makes it easier. It makes you more aware, number one. Number two, for me, I find I'm fighting against the universe a lot less. So when I think about the moon, so new moon, full moon, I think about the universe inhaling and exhaling, right? So on the full moon, that cycle, full moon to new moon, we're actually releasing. So think about it. We've got a big full moon, and then it goes to black. So that cycle from new moon to full moon, or excuse me, from full moon to new moon, which is what we're in right now, is that exhale. It's that releasing. It's that letting go of the things that are no longer serving us. And then from the new moon to the full moon, we've got zero light, so complete darkness, going to this big full moon. That's all about manifesting and creating and allow new things to be built and to rise up into our lives, and
illuminating
more light.
Illuminating
Exactly.
things in our life that need attention or focus as well.
Yes.
And
so,
also, that something that's been super supportive is that we get together and we all realize that we're all feeling the exact same thing. Like, we're all experiencing it, maybe in a little bit different ways and different areas in our lives, depending on where the transits fall in the different houses. But to know that, like, we're not alone, that we're all feeling it.
And I will echo that. I mean, that's one of the reasons I really got into astrology. I was going through, this was a couple of years ago, and I was going through really what I felt was some kind of like spiritual awakening or like dark night of the soul. That's the only way I can describe it. All I know is I was like crying every day, and I was like, what is going on? And I found out about the transit. It was probably about the same time, since we have very similar charts. We were probably going through about the same emotions.
5 years ago? No, 6
years?
years?
For me, but in particular for me, it was like 2017, 18, basically. It was a really difficult time, and Saturn was transiting my moon in my 4th house. We can talk about the significance and symbolism of that later, but it's tough. It's a really tough emotional transit. And I found an astrologer. I found an astrologer online, the Leo King. I'll just give him a shout out. Y'all.
That's how I started my journey.
I know,
too.
Yeah, we both really connected with him, right?
Yeah.
He got me through, and there's others too, right? But he's one that really, like, there was this particular day, and I was feeling so alone, and I was living by myself, and I was like, no one gets me, no one understands what I'm going through, and I'll watch this episode. And he was like, there's like, I forget how many planets, all these planets in retrograde. There was all this chaos in the universe. And I was like, thank you. Like, someone's telling me I'm not crazy for feeling this way. Thank you, Leo King. And he made me feel less alone and more sane, I guess. So I will forever be grateful to him for that.
That's so funny, because that's how my journey started too, was with the Leo King. And yeah, I started like listening to, I was introduced to him in like 2015, and that's also the same year I ever experienced Reiki, and then just so much opened up for me after. I mean, those both of them. Same. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to know more, and I just feel so like divinely guided, and I'm just like, wow, this is so fascinating. I want everyone to feel this. Like,
life changing. And so that's why we're here. And so if you're here, we thank you. And whether this maybe completely resonated and every word stuck with you, or you're just beginning your astrology journey, you said this so eloquently the other day. You were like, you're gonna take, do you remember what you said? I don't want to steal your thunder, but I don't want to make sure we say this because it was so beautiful.
You're going to take away whatever you're meant to take away at this moment in time in your life. If you're meant to, like, whatever you hear and it resonates with you and you want to learn more, that's your sign to keep going forth. And if you don't understand it, that's okay. Like, you're not meant to understand it right now. Like, it unfolds for you as you're meant to learn it and what you're meant to take away.
If there was a little tingle or a little voice that was like, yeah, this is for me, then keep journeying, keep studying. Tony, like, the first time I heard the word chakra, the word Reiki, like, astrology, probably not so much, but I just really connected with what I learned. It's like you could feel it in your body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, I'm open. Okay. I know I need a shift. I know something needs to change. Like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Like, this hurts too bad. It hurts way too bad. And I'm open. And just being open allowed for a huge shift to start taking place. And just keep getting further and further. And now I'm just like, oh my God, I'm mind blown.
Like, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so beautiful.
For this.
And even just the example of Kesley and I, like, I was outside gardening, listening to a Reiki podcast, and they were like, oh yeah, we're going to be interviewing. She's a Kesley Tweed. She's a astrologer and a Reiki master. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, that's like the same path I want to take. And then she starts talking and I'm like, I have that in my chart, and I have that in my chart too. And that's in my chart too. And I was like, okay, I paused the podcast like halfway through, and I'm like, went to our website and I like filled out the contact form. I'm like, you don't have to, I'm just feeling called to contact you. That's all.
I love it. I love it.
Here's my cell phone number if you want to text me.
And I'm so glad you did, because it's been just so much fun ever since. So if y'all watching this ever have the opportunity to find someone who has a very similar chart, it will be a great learning experience in terms of astrology, I promise. So speaking of getting in contact, if people want to register for the ceremony coming up next week, how would they go about doing that?
lalunaohana.com. So it's LALUNAOHANA.com. La Luna
so we hope
Ohana.
Yay, we hope to see y'all there.
And Kesley, if anyone wants a reading, how do they get an astrology reading from you?
Thank you. KesleyTweed.com is where you can go, and I have an astrology section. Check that out. There's all kinds of different readings. So what I do, what's called a soul reading, and it's really intended to do a couple of things. Number one, fall in love with your unique energy, because I believe each one of us has a special magic inside of us. We are magic, and there is only one of you, and the world needs you to show up as the best version of you. And that's what I'm here to do as an astrologer and coach. And beyond that, I like to help my clients answer what I call their soul questions. So those questions that you've held deep within your heart or your soul for as long as you can remember, or it could be a day, or it could be a second, anything that you wanted to know. We use the beautiful language and guidance of the sun, moon, and stars to help us find those answers to your deepest soul questions.
Yeah, and she's so insightful and just amazing person. So as you can tell, you want to connect with her energy. But you can go on to websites and stuff, and you could read about your sun sign and your moon sign. But it's really when you work with an astrologer that you're able to connect the dots in a different and unique way that is specific towards you. That's why readings are so beneficial.
Yes. Now, Britoni, what about your Reiki? How do people get in touch with you for Reiki? Or I know you do readings as well.
Yeah,
so
we've got plenty of websites. That's wholeheartedlyhealed.com. So the reason that I picked my Reiki business as Wholeheartedly Healed is because the word wholeheartedly, one is something that totally resonates with, like that word just resonates with me, but it means committed, right? And then healed is like the destination that we want to be. Our whole life is a healing journey, but when we get to a point where we feel healed and that we can show up truly in our power and or we can help others and like heal others as well, it becomes a beautiful, like, it just like, life just, it becomes so different, right? So that's why it's Wholeheartedly Healed. But yeah, it's wholeheartedlyhealed.com. If you are in the North Carolina area, around the Charlotte area, I have a place in Cornelius I work out of, and then also a place in Denver, North Carolina. But then if you are anywhere in the world other than North Carolina, I offer remote sessions, and Reiki works off the energy or the principles of energy, and there's no time or space. So as above, so below. And we can connect your energy body, and they've been known to be equally as healing. Yeah. And Kesley also offers Reiki. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, your session was so fun.
It was. Oh my gosh.
Girl. It was really fun.
So y'all, if you have the opportunity to feel what it's like to be in a session, so you have Neptune in your first house, if I'm not mistaken, right? And you just have this like space that you hold for people. I remember the first time I looked at your chart, I was like, you're a healer. Like, you just hold this space, and I could feel you holding this, like holding this space of this high vibration. It was just amazing. So y'all, it's a treat. Do it for yourself. I promise you won't regret it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. This has been so much fun. Aquarian Queens episode number 1.
Uno. What's the plan for us? Are we going to be coming on live once a week, or do we know yet?
Yeah. I mean, we're rolling
expectations?
with it. Yeah, we're rolling with it. So I know we have a plan to do another one of these next week.
Okay, so we're gonna do it every Wednesday.
Yeah, we can try Wednesday.
Every Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, girl.
All right. Well, then you can connect in next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Wednesday.
And we will prepare you for whatever else comes our way.
Yes. Awesome. Well, this was fun. All right. Thank you, everybody. We love you. Thank you for joining us. We will see you again next week.
Ciao. Oh, I think next week we might have a guest too.
Oh, yes. We will have Tara.
Yeah, I think our friend Tara is going to join us. So it might be like a health and wellness focused.
Awesome. I love it. Cool.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Let's do this. Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.